allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Bob?
Go ahead, Bob. Okay, bow our heads. Again, Father, we thank you for allowing us to come together, join in camaraderie, and learn more and continue our lessons in Civil Air Patrol and its mission. Be with those who are still en route, give them safety during this inclement weather and storms that we're having. But we also pray for those who are isolated and can't get out of their homes or get to their homes to check to see if there's any damage. Give those people, give them strength. In your name we pray. Amen.
Welcome everyone online. We have Roy, Mike, and Chris. Today is Airspace Education Day. I will hand over shortly the desk to Chris with discussion on how to build your own Stratex device. Before we jump to that, let's cover a few other topics. First of all, Lon, would you like to give an update on aircraft?
Yeah, it went through its 100-hour/annual inspection. There's a couple things that weren't able to be completed, one of them being both left and right aileron push rod ends. They're worn and they need to be replaced according to maintenance 1, but they're on back order, so it'll be some time before they can get fixed. And then we're carrying forward the illumination right up for the PFD, where it doesn't seem to get as bright as other PFDs, but I've talked to several people about that, and you know, the cost of replacing that versus you knowing how to really use that thing, we're just gonna leave that open for some time. And then there's one more write-up that kind of escapes me at the second. Maybe I could remember what it is, but otherwise it's good to fly. I was gonna fly it today on a mission of transport, but the skies kind of closed up and I decided to cancel the mission and do it another day.
Yeah, the weather is pretty questionable.
When I checked the oil, it had 7 quarts in there. So we're watching, because the last oil analysis report showed good, that there were no metals abnormal in there, but the one prior to that had metals. So we're not sure if it was a bad sampling or what, so we gotta wait till the next oil change and the oil analysis to see if there's a trend where it's still normal. Hopefully so. And I don't see that it's consuming a lot of oil like we thought it was gonna be. So, but we'll keep watching that.
Okay. Sounds good. A few other updates on communication within the group, within the wing, training opportunities and such. So if anyone is interested in FAA Part 107 training, basically it's what is it? Unmanned aircraft operations, drones. So there was an email from Major Hollerbach with some pretty good references for ground school. So if anyone is interested, I can distribute directly. I don't want to flood your mailboxes for no reason. But I'm pretty sure you can look up that email. If you just search in your recent emails for FAA Part 107, you'll find it. The next important one, if you already have ICS 300 and you would like to get ICS 400 training, there will be an opportunity for that, March 11th through 12th. The sign-up form was distributed by Major God. So if you don't find that email and you already have ICS 300 as prerequisite, please reach out to me. I'll forward the email. Question? So it's continuous education on FEMA emergency management. ICS is the whole system for disaster relief, how different agencies operate together to work on remediation. First of all, preparation, response, and rollback of resources. So this is something you may be interested. You have to get through ICS 300 first. So you can watch for, there are sign-up emails being distributed wing-wide once in a while. So when you see it, you can jump into it, but you have to have a prerequisite of previous trainings. I believe 100, 700, 800 prerequisites for 300, a little bit kind of backwards. But then to get to 400, you have to have 300 done. All right. So next, there will be Southern California Homecoming Air Show on March Air Show, and there is a list distributed for sign-ups. If you sign up to that, so there was a follow-up email sent asking for specific roles to be fulfilled. So check that out and respond to First Lieutenant Gillette. One more update before we go to airspace education, which kind of fits our training program within the squadron. On March 11th, there will be advanced communications training held here at our squadron. That's a Group 3 training. The training will take place in person from 900 to 1300. Again, I highly recommend to everyone who is pursuing mission observer and higher ratings to attend that training. It gives you a good idea how CEP communications operate and gives you an opportunity to help in different communication scenarios. Again, check your email. If you don't find that sign-up email, I will forward it to you. And one more announcement. There was an email. It's fairly recent. So there is a virtual event organized by NASA. First day of this event was today. It continues for another 2 days. It's called Imagine Aviation. It's virtual. Starts at 8 in the morning Pacific time, ends at 11. Well, I guess it's a mistake. But basically, if you have time, go for it. Supposed to be interesting. Also, this event will be available as a recording. So if you don't have time during these days, you can watch this event later. Check the email from First Lieutenant Kalidas. And there was a follow-up after that by, just a second. By Catherine Column, and was sent to the whole wing, so you should have it in your mailbox. And reminder, if you don't have access to your CEP email, reach out to IT support and recover it, because all the good stuff happening within the CEP information space. Okay, now I hand over to our
do they do any training on how to actually fly the drones, or is that all pertaining to how to get the certificate?
So the email I refer to is about ground school.
You can actually cover the ground school before you apply for FAA test. There are a variety of resources, paid and free, you can use to prepare yourself. As far as practical part, there are announcements distributed here and there for actual hands-on training within the wing. It's been done by different groups at different locations. If you are interested, be on lookout for those emails and announcements. Yeah, it's typically targeting cadets, but the senior members can also participate in it. All right. Okay, Chris, the floor is yours. Okay. Let me just tilt this camera. There we go. Yeah, feel free to move it around.
So, let me get my presentation here started, just so that everybody can see. Is it sharing?
It's loading. You can share directly on screen, and we will not mess around.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. I'll. I can just manage it through over here with the.
I just want to make it bigger.
All right. So, for this presentation, we mentioned last month that we would be talking about the Stratix ADSB device, and I brought my unit in. Andre also brought his in. Basically, first I want to go over some basics. What is the Stratix? It's, as you can see on the screen there, it's a home-built ADSB receiver, in only, not out, for nearly real-time weather, GPS, traffic data to sync up with your EFB. Primarily, of course, most of us are going to be using ForeFlight, but it also works with Garmin Flight and pretty much any other EFB out there. It's based on the Raspberry Pi single board computer unit. A lot of people might ask, if you don't not familiar, what is a Raspberry Pi? Well, if the video would play.
Jammed. Raspberry. There's only one man who would dare give me the raspberry.
It is nothing to do with Spaceballs, but I had to include that video because we're talking about Raspberry. So the Raspberry Pi is essentially, it's just a computer on a all on one board. I brought one here. I have several at home. I have doing all different things. I brought this one that's in a clear case so that you guys can take a look at it without having to worry about static shock or anything like that to the board itself. So I'm going to pass this around. Basically, you can see it has 4 USB ports on it, a Ethernet port, an HDMI out. Power is in through a what is it called? Micro USB, and it receives all of its programming and software through a micro SD slot on the bottom side here. This particular unit, the case, the fan, all that's add-on. This is just the board itself, just the green circuit board is pretty much all you get. It has a series of pinouts as well along the top side that allows it to expand its capabilities through various adapters and devices. For non-aviation applications, they have things like you can plug arcade game buttons in the top of it to get interactivity, microphones, speakers, all that directly through these input-output boards. Most common purpose for those, though, is just to power a cooling fan, such as what's on this unit right here. That's also what's going to be used inside the Stratix itself. Again, the device, like I said, it's very small. It's designed to be about the size of a credit card, and it's essentially based on technology from about, this particular unit is a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, which is based on technology from about 2016 cell phone era. So it's basically about the equivalent of that era cell phones in speed. The newest ones, they have Raspberry Pi 4, which is based on about 2020 cell phone technology. They also have the ones that actually in my Stratix is a Raspberry Pi 3B, not a 3B Plus. That's 2015 technology. So I'll pass this piece around so you can just, anybody wants to see what the board itself looks like. And that is really lagging up there, because I'm on another slide already and it's not updating it. So essentially on that board you have RAM, a CPU, and I mentioned the HDMI video out. It also has Wi-Fi.
Could you maybe share your file and I'll share it from my computer?
It is in, it's not a, it's Apple Keynote.
Yeah, I can do it. So, Apple. If you share AirDrop maybe.
I'll do that on the fly here.
AirDrop. Right there. Hold on a second, I probably need to open it. Yeah, that's me. While we are waiting, Roy mentioned that regarding 107 certificate, if you're already a pilot, it is a piece of cake. I got mine and had no drone experience flying them. It is all about FARs and best practices. I then bought a drone, which I then put in the trees a few times before I flew it into my pool. And the red and green lights blinking 6 feet under was pretty cool. Thanks, Roy. Alright. So I will open the presentation and you'll need to click on the 2 places, I guess. So we are here. So I'll share this one. I'll follow you basically from my place.
Actually, we just share it off yours instead of.
Okay. Big enough.
Right. Let's try this again. All right. So, yeah, I was mentioning that the Pi comes in these various models. There's older models before the 3B, but the 3B is the minimum model to meet the requirements for the Stratix needs. The difference between the 3B, 3B Plus, and the 4 are for the purposes of the Stratix negligible. The newer models, of course, get a better RAM, better performance, but this is a very low powered system, so it doesn't really need a really super high end machine. Obviously, if we're talking about making this work on 2014, 2015 cell phone technology. The one downside, though, if you are going to look for these, is against one thing that is against the 4 is that it does use significantly more power, even though the software itself does not need it, because the 4 is just a much more robust processor board. Oops, I forgot it's not a touchscreen. How do I do that? There we go. Got it. So, what do you need to do to make a Raspberry Pi Stratix unit work? You need a Raspberry Pi 3B or later. I already mentioned that. I'm going to list the prices here based on the market, not the market, the MSRP prices, because right now the Raspberry Pi units, all of them are being scalped at pretty 3 to 4 times their recommended price. The company is having issues making them, as we know about the supply issues that all the tech industry has been dealing with for the past about 2 years. Currently a 3B Plus, which retails MSRP for $35, is going for about $70 to $80 on the used Amazon market. So keep that in mind. It's still going to come out to be cheaper than the commercially produced alternatives. But if you're willing to wait, or if you already have a Raspberry sitting around doing something else, this is a repurpose for it that you can use. You also are going to need a micro SD card. Many of us have those laying around. If you don't, about 15 bucks is going to get you a good sized one. You'll need the Stratix software, which is a free download. Some software called Etcher software, which will help you to format the SD card. That is also a free download. Radios and antennas for traffic and weather. The unit the equivalent to what I connected with is $62. Again, the links for all this stuff will be in later slides, and I'll put those on there if you want those. And you'll also need a battery pack. That's highly variable. The one that I included is very large capacity. This is $70, but you can get battery packs like this for $30, so you can save costs on that as well. The whole unit, you're looking at roughly in the $200 ballpark to create one of these units. There's also highly recommended options, which would be the case. This particular case is $17. Technically, you don't need a case. Raspberry Pi can run perfectly fine without a case, but it's going to be really messy having this circuit board and wires just kind of laying around your cockpit. But the reason why I mention that is because if you're more a creative type and want to create a bigger, more permanent box, at least as permanent as the FAA allows you, you can do your own little custom shell. If you have a, what do you call it? 3D printer. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
There is a bunch of designs for the cases available online. You just download it, plug it to your printer, and it will produce the desired material on the whole case.
Yeah. In fact, this case here and the one on the unit that I passed around, those were both 3D printed, but I don't have a 3D printer, so they were 3D printed, then sold on Amazon, and somebody else makes money off it. But again, it's not a whole lot. It's $17 for this case here, which includes 2 cooling fans, mounting places, mounting points, and a strap to hold the battery on, as well as there's something else in here, but I can't remember what it is now. But it's a pretty robust case in this particular unit. You also were going to probably want to get a GPS antenna unit. In the case of this one, I chose to get a what's called a GPS mouse. This is actually magnetic, so I don't know if this board is magnetic or not, but it's not. But this is magnetic, so if you have some metal that you can stick it to, it'll hold nicely. Of course, we don't always have that in the up near where we want to put in the plane, but the nice thing is you have a nice long cord here, so this unit can sit somewhere out of sight, or maybe in the back seat, or wherever, with this placed up on the above the instrument panel, so that it has a nice view of the sky to catch all those satellites. They also have smaller ones if you wanted something that's more compact, where the actual GPS antenna fits inside the chassis itself, so you don't have to deal with this cable. I personally like the reassurance I get from knowing that this GPS unit is sitting up in the window where it can see the sky and catch all the satellites. It's also recommended that you attach heat sinks to this, because especially here in California, right, it's going to get hot. And the cooling fans do a good job of cooling the unit, but you want to make sure that you provide as much cooling as possible. When I passed the unit around, you could actually see the heat sink. One heat sink is applied to the processor unit, which is on the bottom. Another heat sink is applied to the RAM module, which is on the top there. And those are the two heat sinks that are on there. Actually, I'm sorry. The processor is directly under the fan, and then the RAM is on the bottom, and then this is the communications module, sorry, on the top. So there's 3 heat sinks. It's about $5 for those heat sinks. Oh, one other thing on the case unit as well is I also recommend getting a white or a clear case, again, for California heat, because if you have a black case in this sun, it's gonna potentially overheat. I have not had a situation though where this unit has overheated once on me yet, through 3 California summers. So it's been pretty good. My iPad, on the other hand, that's had a few overheating issues. There's 2 more additional pieces that are these are really, really, really highly optional. The AHRS, that's the Artificial Horizon module. Those are around $20, very hard to find. You usually end up scrapping one by on eBay. The reason I consider they're fully or highly optional is because the Artificial Horizon connection with the ForeFlight software is sketchy somewhat. It is, and as with all Artificial Horizons in EFBs, it is not considered anything other than a backup or just a reference point. It's not something you can actually fly instrument conditions with. And a mounting solution, which there are various options. Again, this particular case, one of the reasons why I chose it is because it has mounting points that allows you to actually use GoPro, existing GoPro mounts. And a lot of planes you rent these days, they've installed GoPro mounts all over the planes, because that's what people want these days. So you can use a GoPro mount. You can also attach suction cups to it, do all kinds of things to get it mounted where you want it. Again, those mounts run around $20. If you buy every option, you're probably looking about $250 at basic normal MSRP price. Some close-up pictures of the unit's components here. The dual band antenna and radio kit. So what you actually are going to see inside this chassis, and again, I can't really take it apart because it's all snapped together, and I'm afraid that it might break. But basically, what you see up there is 2 antennas, which are going to plug into some mounting points that you install in the case. Those antennas are going to connect via those lead lines to the backside of these USB radio transceivers. Those radio receivers, again, they plug into the USB ports that will be on the Pi board itself. That connection is actually fully contained inside here, and I can show you that because that is simply under a easy access panel. And so again, you can see the you can see the two USB connections there, and also have one USB is taken up by the GPS cord, and one is taken up by the extra cooling fan. So that's all inside there. My radio receivers in here, these are a slightly different model from those. Again, I made this 3 years ago. Some of the components in mine are not available on the market anymore. This one's actually nicer, and I wish I had it because that one has, I had a tough time getting these antenna leads actually connected to the board, whereas that looks like it's a much easier to connect those antenna leads the way that that's set up. It also has, I have bare circuits here, whereas that has some plastic shell over the circuit boards themselves. Again, that's about as far as I can disconnect without potentially breaking the plastic, so I'm not going to run that risk. The next piece, and again, I put the link on there, but you can't really click on it right here. But the next piece, the piece that I just dropped on the floor, I mentioned this earlier, is the battery unit. The main thing you want to look for when getting a battery is you need to have something that outputs at least 2.5 amps per port. Most units output 2.4 amps. It's 1/10 of an amp too low for the Raspberry Pi. The Pi will run, but it might run slowly and might not get you all the performance you need. A more modern unit will run a 3 amp output on these USB ports for most of what they call the quick charge on the phone. That's perfectly good. That's perfectly fine, and that's actually necessary if you're going to run a Raspberry Pi 4 module. So the Pi 4 needs a 4 amp. The 3B and 3B Plus need 2.5 amps. So if you get a 3 amp unit like this one, you're good to go, no matter which module you have. The other thing I like about this particular one, this is 26,800 milliamps. That's going to be enough charge to last you many days of consistent use without recharging. In fact, I found out I charged this last night, but the last time I charged it was several months ago. So this battery pack will last you a long time if all you're doing is running the Raspberry Pi. It also has enough charge to recharge your most cell phones 4 to 6 times too. So you can use this as a battery, as an emergency backup as well. This can be an emergency toolkit item. So if you're stranded out somewhere and you need to make sure your phone is running, you just unplug this from your Stratix and make sure you have your phone cable, plug right into your phone, and now you have battery for literally for days for your phone as well. So again, this can be an emergency toolkit item, not just for your Stratix. If you're not familiar with buying these batteries, I do want you to exercise caution when shopping for this type of backup battery, because several off-brand units that I've seen on Amazon, if you read the comments, people say things like, "Oh, it was really light." If you read that comment in an Amazon review for a battery that's supposed to be 10,000 milliamps or bigger, if they say it's lightweight, it's not really 10,000 milliamps. They're lying. I'll just say that right out, because it weighs a lot to get a battery, get that much juice in a battery. For the case, again, I have a picture of what this case looks like. This particular one pictured is clear, so you can see the internals a little better. It comes with all of those pieces that you see there, the suction cups, a ball mount, and I'm not sure actually what happened to my ball mount. It's somewhere in a drawer. A couple of rubber feet to give you some standoff. It comes with a Velcro strap that allows you to connect to keep the battery firmly attached to the bottom of the Pi. Sorry, of the Stratix. I keep calling it a Pi. Again, I like this one because it has dual fans. It was big enough to fit the artificial horizon module inside. It had multiple cutouts on the side where you can actually run cables and antenna leads in different formations. If you have different, if you bought different antennas. So, for example, this particular antenna wire setup worked well to put the antennas on these top holes, but other modules might want to go better on the bottom holes or on the side holes. So this does have the option to you just punch out whichever holes you need. You can even punch out more holes if you feel it needs more ventilation. That's another option too. And again, this one is GoPro mount compatible. This particular one, like I said, is available in 4 different colors, which I only recommend using light or clear because of heat. The GPS mouse unit that I mentioned, this is a long cord. I think this is actually a newer version than what I have, because I don't think mine is a 7-foot cord, but it's just plug and play. You just plug it right into the USB port on there, and you're good to go. I mentioned a lot of benefits of it earlier. It's external to the case, so you can place the antenna somewhere where you may not be able to place the Stratix itself. This is a close-up of the heat sinks. Again, just helps get rid of the heat from the CPU and the RAM and the communications module. It's a comparison to why you would do this over getting a commercial product. So as I mentioned, the price range on this, you can build this for between $150 to $250 if you can get the products at the standard pricing. They offer a pre-built one, a company called CrewDog Electronics. They're actually the ones who made the antenna kits that I have on here. That pre-built unit is $389. So basically you're paying an extra $150 to have them build it for you and source all the parts. The next least expensive unit that's in the similar class of this will be the Sentry Mini. Now that is $299. It is less expensive than CrewDog's pre-made Stratix. It is, however, less capable in some regards. It does not, for example, with that price, include a battery. So you still need to go out and spend money on a battery for the Sentry Mini. The Sentry Mini is compatible only with ForeFlight. As all Sentry units are only compatible with ForeFlight. They're made by ForeFlight. They can only use them with ForeFlight. That may not be an issue if you're only ever going to use ForeFlight, but it could be an issue if you ever need to change your electronic flight bag. You'll need to also change to a Stratix or a Stratus or a Garmin unit. This chart on the left, that's the best chart I could find in terms of comparing the Sentry units. The Stratus 3 is very similar in capabilities to the Sentry Plus, and the Garmin GDL is also similar in capabilities to the Sentry Plus. And as you can see, the price, once you get above the Sentry Mini, starts going much higher. Sentry's website says it's $499 for the standard middle level Sentry, but I saw it for $599 on all the listings I found. So don't know who's telling the truth there. The rest of the units are over $700. So basically, the main reason why you want to do this is you're going to save yourself up to $500 to get much of the same capability as you would off of the commercially based units. Also, it's just kind of fun. You know, you get the satisfaction of actually building something yourself, and you know, if you're outside of those of us who may be involved with experimental aircraft and all that type of stuff, or our A and Ps, we don't get a whole lot of chance to actually like work on our own stuff in aviation, right? The FAA doesn't let us to do a whole lot of that. Everything has to be certified and done under strict conditions. So this is one of those few areas where you can actually kind of play around and have some fun. On top of that, when you're done, you get to your destination. This is a computer, so you can just plug that HDMI cable in and swap out the memory card and use it as a computer. It's a Linux-based computer inside there, so you can dual purpose this device if you want, or just carry around a second like I have. So there's lots of other things you can do with that. And there are even more expensive units than the $800 ones, but I didn't bother listing those because now we're just talking. I think the point is made about the price. For installing the software, this is probably the most technical portion of this process. So I'm actually going to play a video from CrewDog on how to install the software, because everything else, before I get into this, actually building the unit is very, very straightforward. It is so easy and simple. And Andre took his apart already.
I'll show you how it looks inside. I'll go around. So we get a board, we plug all the items to the designated places. You attach a couple of wires for the antennas. You put it inside the case, cover it up, close it in, you're done. And screw two antennas in. So that's how it looks.
Have you ever built Legos? And actually had to look like the
It's
car that
not
on the
more
box?
complex than building your computer, actually less complex.
I can't bring up where it says Squadron.
You have seen.
Huh?
So the components are inside. Very simple.
And one thing too, the reason why it's called a Stratix is it's based off of the Stratus, but everything in the it's based off of Linux based software. They always want to add the letter X to the end of the description of it to kind of delineate this Linux based item. So you had a comment? I couldn't.
Yeah, I can't find it when I search for that. So I said, I want to search and see what all this stuff is.
Okay.
It won't come up.
On Google?
No, and this- I don't have Google because it's Apple.
Okay. So you mean just a browser search isn't finding anything? Huh. It'd be STRATUX and just ADS-B, and you should be able to find some.
There
Now-
was a website, very nice website with all the information, steps how to build it. Unfortunately, it's down because
Yes.
nobody pays for hosting. But there are many other places on YouTube, in particular. CrewDog has full detailed video on how to put it together with part numbers listed in the comments section. Yet some part numbers are outdated on that list. We may help you putting the modern list together.
Yeah, and I was able to put together a modern parts list for everything except the AHRS. And the actual Raspberry Pi unit itself, only because that's, again, like I said, in short supply. The company is, I can show you the company and get you the Raspberry Pi headquarters, but you can pretty much buy those anywhere. They actually sell them at Best Buy when they have them in stock. You can walk into Best Buy at the in the section where they have video cards and RAM and storage for your computers. They have the Raspberry Pis there as well when they are able to get them. So it's actually the Pi itself is when it's available is one of the easiest pieces to find. But again, I do have all the links. Amazon links, of course, because that's the most universal thing to find anything on. But there are other sources. Once you find, if you're good about shopping around, once you know what to look for based on the Amazon links, you can go looking at other places. There's a store in Tustin called Micro Center, which is also, if you don't mind driving down to Tustin, usually has a ton of Raspberry accessories. Yeah, and
Yeah, I agree with Chris that HRS on Stratox is worthless.
and I do agree. I tried it. It's not worth the effort. Um, but again, the is what Andre was mentioning was the main website that hosted a bunch of instructions and files on it did go down because nobody was paying for it. It's a non-profit organization, so when nobody paid, they didn't have any money to keep it running. The the CrewDog company is where I got a lot of so I actually found the software, the installation software for it, and that's where I got this video from on how to install it. Now, this particular video, it's designed for reinstalling if you buy a CrewDog pre-made unit, but the process is exactly the same as if you were installing it for the first time. So I'm going to play the video, and it's not very long. Actually, there we go. Nope, that's not it.
Hi, this is Sean with CrewDog Electronics. I'm going to show you how to flash your software.
So ignore this part at the beginning. This is if you have an error.
A light and a flash, it means there's something corrupted with the software. You'll need to reflash it. So go ahead and just unplug the power. And what you want to do is take out this micro SD card with a pair of tweezers very carefully. It's a very brittle card. So just reach in there, pull it out, and this brings out your micro SD card. You want to put the micro SD card into an SD card adapter, just like this, label up, and then you can use this SD card adapter to plug into your laptop or computer to actually do the flashing process. I'll show you how to do that now. All right, now that you're on your computer, you'll need to visit two websites. First is Etcher, etcher.io, and this is the program that allows you to burn images to your SD card. So bring up the website. I'll put a link here at the bottom. Click on Download. I have a Mac, but they also have PC versions, and that'll save to your desktop. You can just go ahead and install it. And then the other thing you'll need to do is go to stratix.me. Once again, I'll put the link at the bottom. Go down to Download, click that, and that'll download the latest image. You can just go ahead and save that to your desktop. I've already done that as well. So here is the downloaded image. Double click on it to unzip it. For Windows, I think it's built in, or you can use a program like WinZip. And this will go ahead and unarchive the image, and it should be a .img file. You'll see here on the desktop in a second. Okay, it's just about done extracting the archive. It'll be an image file. After this is done, we'll open up Etcher and insert our micro SD card that's already in the adapter into the side of the laptop or the computer. So there's the image. I'm going to open up Etcher. All right, now I'm in Etcher. You need to select your image, so click on Select Image. Select the image that you just unzipped. Don't do the .zip file, do the .img. And then for Select Drive, if you put your SD reader into the slot, it should automatically detect. I just inserted mine. There it is, it detected. But if you have multiple ones, you can click on Change and pick the appropriate one. Now all you need to do is hit Flash. It's going to flash the image, and then it's going to verify it, and it'll automatically unmount it for you. All right, you can see here we're just about done validating. So you can just remove the SD card from the side of your laptop or the computer. I'll show you how to insert the unit. The new software flashed. You can take your micro SD card out and insert it back into the unit. It's flushed inside the unit, and that'll put on your unit. You should get a solid green light instead of a flashing green light, and that lets you know that the software is now working. If you've got any questions, you can visit the website, send me an email, or visit us on Facebook.
Okay, and the video didn't play through, so I'm posting the video in the chat right now, so you can those that are online can also see it, and also we can all check it out again later if you need to check it out. But yeah, As you can see, it's not even a long process. They did that whole thing in a 3.5 minute video. This is literally oops, just closed out the whole presentation. This whole thing is a 15-20 minute project. It'll go faster than it took me to explain it. It's really, it's fun. Like I said, it's a chance you get to actually build something yourself that helps you fly. And if you're like me and have a lot of nerdy friends, you can say, hey, look at this cool thing I built. And then they're staring at it and then they're jealous because you fly, and they're also jealous that you built a computer that helps you to fly. So it's, fun around that. Not that I was showing this off at work all day long or not. Yes.
So once you get it up and running, working, put it in the plane, got power and all that, does it, does your ForeFlight application automatically link with it and show the traffic on your
Yeah. So
ForeFlight maps?
So how this works? Actually, let me power it up for you right now. So if you even have your iPad, it can actually bond with it right now. But basically, what's going to happen is it is going to act as a Wi-Fi hotspot. It does not have internet connection. It's going to get a little bit like the master's on in a plane, because it's got these fans buzzing. But it's going to send out this Wi-Fi signal using the built-in Wi-Fi adapter that's in the Raspberry unit, which is one of the reasons why you need the 3B model or later, because I believe the previous models didn't have the Wi-Fi connection. That Wi-Fi connection, you simply connect to it via your connect to Wi-Fi function on your iPad. So when you just pull up the Wi-Fi options, connect, you'll find Stratix. And once you do that, within ForeFlight, it will show you devices, and the device will pop up and it will say Stratix. And once it recognizes the Stratix device, at that point, you don't have to do anything. It automatically understands the information that's being fed to it. So you will get, again, dual band traffic, over the 978 megahertz frequency and the 1090 megahertz frequency. You'll get the weather relay from the ground-based weather stations. And, of course, with the GPS module, you'll get your GPS information, which is more accurate, with the right unit, of course, more accurate than the GPS that's in your tablet itself. So, and another way, that's another thing it can actually save you money on. If you're shopping for a new iPad, you can avoid having to get the cellular model iPad, which costs $120 more than the non-cellular model iPad, because you now don't need the GPS. It's built into the cellular iPad. I still recommend getting it just because it gives you a backup in case this dies. You still have GPS built into the iPad or iPhone, but it can also connect to every plane, since it's basically a Wi-Fi server. That's how your phone sees it. It just says, hey, there's a server over there, I'm going to connect. So because of that, I don't know if there's actually a limit to how many devices that you can plug into, but you probably can't fit them all in a Cessna anyways, if there was a limit. So, so you can you can have the pilot sitting there, passenger sitting there, since it connects to multiple devices. Say if you have a passenger who's also a pilot and they're used to flying with Garmin Flight or any of the other EFBs, they can connect to the same device as you are. Unlike with the Sentry, where if they don't have ForeFlight, they're not going to see anything. So yeah, so right now, you probably will see, if you were searching for Wi-Fi signal, you'll probably see a Stratix in the room on the Wi-Fi connection options. So it's a good question though. I forgot to basically mention that. I think it's in my notes, but I kind of didn't even look at my notes. So
all planes have this ADS-B in their planes now. Just referencing R182, if you bring ForeFlight up to that, I'm pretty sure
quite important from a pay point of view. So many aircraft don't have a USB in.
Now, on ForeFlight, the traffic that it's giving you just sitting here, I can bring up and it shows me all the traffic.
That
For
gets
the radar?
traffic from internet connection. But when you're up in the air and there is no internet connection because you are higher than reception allows for cellular towers,
There's also,
that's the only way for you to get, or one of other receivers.
yeah, so this is actually picking up the direct broadcast from the other planes in the sky. So your latency on this, if you click on ForeFlight, for example, you see on the targets on the ForeFlight, you'll see it'll say 15 seconds, 32 seconds. Just today, I was again while I was totally not showing my friends at work this unit. I clicked on one, and there was a Delta flight, and it was showing the information 45 seconds out of date. Now, if you can imagine how far away a Delta plane actually is when it's 45 seconds out of date, that is completely useless to you in the air, right? They are now 5, 6, 7 miles down the road. This latency is usually within the single digits of seconds, usually under 5, which is much more useful to us in terms of avoiding traffic. If you've been over Lake Matthews, when it's crowded there, you can actually you can see how crazy it is in real time. So I'll be looking at you can look down and see, it says there's a plane 3 o'clock, and you look over and you're like, yep, sure enough, there's a plane 3 o'clock. And now, you can't rely on it. You still need to use the old Mark II eyeball, because not every plane right where we're at has to have the ADS-B on. We're just outside that window from the LAX where they can fly around still without it on, especially over Lake Matthews.
Outside of Class Charlie, it's okay to
Yeah, exactly. So we're outside that airspace where they always need it, but it's even though most of the planes here are going to have it, but it also, the other nice thing about it is when it's connected to in a nice conjunction of technology, where if you have this plus your ForeFlight plus a headset with a like the Lightspeed Zulu 3, I'm assuming the Delta Zulu probably as well, that has a 3.5 millimeter input on it. You can plug the 3.5 millimeter output on your iPad into the 3.5 millimeter input on the Lightspeed Zulu headset, and you actually hear traffic alerts over your headset, which I have all the time. It'll literally tell you, just like the air traffic controller is in your ear, saying, traffic, 12 o'clock, 4 miles ahead, 200 feet above you, or whatever whatever those variants are. So that's
So also, if your headset has Bluetooth connection, you can pair your headset to your iPad or whatever flight ESB you use, and you also get audible traffic alerts.
yeah, you can do that with Bluetooth or through the 3.5 millimeter. Yeah, I prefer the 3.5 millimeter just because I like having wires all over the place. But yeah, so that is another extra added safety feature. Basically, it's something else looking out for you up there. And as with always, though, you don't want to rely on it. It's not your only source, but it's a great extra source of information. And if done right, it shouldn't distract from what your primary goal is, which is looking out that window and flying the airplane. Like I always, usually when I'm flying with my wife, and she's got some of the technology in her lap, and sometimes I'm just like, get that thing out of here right now, I'm busy, I'm looking out the window. But that's just flight decision making, right? That's, you have to be attentive to what your needs. But again, it's really cool, like I said, just seeing all the neat stuff you can do with this. Just on a secondary side note also, what I'm actually planning on doing with this other Raspberry is similar to this. It's going to be an ADSB in receiver that connects to the radar box software that uploads to the internet traffic alerts. So basically, it'll feed the internet feed for ForeFlight and for radar box and for other software, so that you can see that. I haven't gotten around to it yet. I have the antenna sitting there. I just need to actually build the SD card and plug it in. With that, it's 8:02. So, any questions, or we will wrap this up? Or yeah.
I think that they can do flight data recording.
That is a capability on the higher end Stratuses and Century. I believe that's actually something you can tinker with and turn on in the Stratix software, but it doesn't come on by default, if I remember correctly.
I believe it does record performance data.
Yeah.
It depends on your ForeFlight subscription, if actually it captures the track.
ForeFlight definitely on my side does capture the track.
The version we get as pilots at CEP does have that capability. So you can actually review your profile, play back the whole flight.
Yeah, it's not necessary for the device to do it, because in most ForeFlight subscriptions, the better ones have that function. Because I haven't got the cap ForeFlight yet, and mine ForeFlight does have that track recording as well.
Okay, that was my follow-on question.
Yeah.
Like, where do you view the data for its ForeFlight?
Yeah, those ones that mention that they have the flight track data, they're storing it internally. But the main issue with this storing it internally is most of the times you're going to be using a very small capacity micro SD card, so it's going to fill up real quick. But if you throw a 128 gig micro SD in there, you can probably make it work. And again, being the way the Raspberry Pi works, it's super cable. So if you want to go crazy, build your own custom case, you can plug a external hard drive into. You can get a USB hub, plug in all the stuff into the hub, and then plug a hard drive into there, so you can have a 2 terabyte, 10 terabyte, whatever you want hard drive to record all that data to. So that is an option. It's Linux based, so you can do a lot of stuff in terms of getting it working. I don't see any questions online, so gotta wrap it up. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Chris.
Jason, Chris, thank you for attending. Any ideas for future specification, please shoot an email to myself and Kriston, and we'll take care of it. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.
It's pretty cool how